with that, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, Tim Engstrom. The American Legion Earl C. Hill Post 550 has helped the youth in Bloomington. Community support of youth and veterans are the key service area in which the Bloomington American Legion Post concentrates. And I've thanked him on behalf of the school district, as has Superintendent Melby, because we see this name often when they're helping out youth in our community. The American Legion has been around since it chartered by Congress in 1919. Strengthening communities is one of its missions. The American Legion works to benefit the whole veteran, and Tim Engstrom is the communications director for the American Legion Department of Minnesota and is the gambling manager for Bloomington American Legion Post 5050. He's served in telecommunications as part of the 82nd Airborne Division in the Persian Gulf War. He attended Iowa State University thanks to the GI Bill and the Army College Fund, graduating with a degree in journalism and a minor in English. He worked for several years as a daily newspaper editor, and he's lived in Bloomington since 2017. He and his wife have 2 sons, and I am very happy to introduce Tim Engstrom to be our speaker today. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yes, we agree. You should move up.
Okay, I have to figure this out. Okay, so I'm the communications director for the American Legion Department of Minnesota over in St. Paul. That's my day job. But on the side, my other job is the gambling manager for the Bloomington American Legion Post 550 here in town. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. I think we've been doing a lot of charitable good in the community, but we really don't ever say anything to anybody about it. And I've been trying to get more check passing photos. And this is a really good check passing photo. This is the show choir at Kennedy qualified for nationals. And they had to go to Branson, Missouri, and they needed to raise $60,000 really fast. And we gave them $10,000 of that $60,000. And so this is the photo I took, and we put it on our social media. And the National American Legion, headquartered in Indianapolis, noticed it, and they came and interviewed me and did a story. So it was on their website too. So it got recognized all over the country. So that's pretty cool. We do, I know some of you probably will ask, well, about the American Legion here in town. The American Legion here in Bloomington used to have a bar and restaurant. A lot of times people think of the American Legion in the bars and restaurants that they have, but they don't know that about half of them don't have a bar and restaurant. So we're one of the ones that don't have our own building. What we do is we share with the VFW. They have a building that used to be a roller skating rink, and it's behind the Cub Foods on Lyndale. So if you've ever been back there. And they own the building, and we lease an office from them. And we also own a shuttle bus that we sometimes use for our baseball players and stuff. One of the reasons we have a shuttle bus is because you may know it gets harder and harder to rent vans to take players to places like Fargo or Omaha or whatnot. So we did that. And it's also nice to use for our honor guard, because you imagine an honor guard shows up at a cemetery and they've got 12 different cars, if they didn't carpool at all, you know, and that takes up a lot of cemetery space. So it's nice to have them take the van when they go to places. And then we go to veterans functions as well now and then. So yeah, this was a pretty cool donation we made. Oh yeah, we support the youth. The American Legion has 4 pillars. The veterans is one of them. Americanism is another. That's things like baseball or how we bought all the flags for the schools in town. Youth is another one. And then we also have national defense. So we have a support for like helping with Camp Ripley sometimes, or the Coast Guard station up in Duluth. Various things like that. The armory here in town, this was last year, but we gave all of their enlisted personnel that were below, E5 or below, we gave them gift cards at Christmas. I forget how much, $10,000 worth of gift cards to help them. So that was, and it was during the pandemic, so that's one of the reasons for doing that, to help them out. So Bloomington American Legion is dedicated to service the youth of our community. We donated $10,000 to the Kennedy Show Choir so they could attend nationals. This is the Bloomington Kennedy Activities Foundation. This is also a youth aspect. We donated $10,000 to the Bloomington Kennedy Activities Foundation in this picture. Jefferson also has the JAG Foundation, so the JAG Foundation runs gambling at 3 different restaurants in town. And so the Kennedy side doesn't have the same thing. So we're kind of the fundraisers for Kennedy, and we have a really good relationship with them. That's just what we gave them on that check. I think in calendar year of last year, the total that we gave the Bloomington Kennedy Activities Foundation was $29,108. So we help them out. And that doesn't count some of the things we've given individually, like the show choir, that doesn't count in that total. This is just to the foundation. We've also given separately to a lot of the sports directly. Like, people don't know that when you see the Kennedy Eagles play football, we bought those jerseys that they're wearing. Those headsets the coach used, we bought those. So the softball program, they do bingo, or they did meat raffles at the sports page throughout the month of April. So they are doing things to get money separately from the foundation too. So that's just the amount through the foundation, and then a lot of the sports teams come to us directly. And I don't have a grand total for that. So this was something we did. Jamie, you might be familiar with it. Community. Post 550 donated $5,000 to the Bloomington Sister City organization. We want our city to continue to have a strong relationship with Isuzu Japan. And I'm hoping that when they come this summer, they can go to Red Haddocks Field and see an American Legion baseball game. Because I know that they play baseball in Japan too. So it may be something we can all share.
I'll send a message.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody, Dwayne's wife Kelly is the head of our sister city organization. So
She says thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was really enjoyable, and this fellow here works at Toro, so we might actually work with, our baseball program might work to seek a grant that we might be able to get a lawnmower to help with mowing the grass at Red Haddocks Field. So this was something we did. Have you ever seen Home for the Holidays on WCCO? So we gave $10,000 to MACV. And MACV is the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans. Now, they're based in St. Paul, but they have a shelter in Bloomington. And they call it the Bloomington Vet House. And what's different about the shelter in Bloomington is that it's not like, you think of a homeless veteran and you think of like an individual person. But this is the type of shelter for families. And so I'll tell you one story of one of the veterans that was in there. She was a community college professor, I think over in Inver Hills. It might be there. Is there another one in Egan? It was in that part of the metro, so I'm assuming Inver Hills. And so it was winter. She had a daughter. She had two children of her own, and one of the children had her own children. So there's 3 mouths basically relying on this single mother, and she's a veteran. And it's the winter, and she goes out, and she's clearing the snow off of her car. She falls and hits her head on the car. And it's just like on TV when we were kids and they'd have that episode where they'd have amnesia and they couldn't remember everything. That actually happened. And so she had a difficult time teaching what she was supposed to be teaching at the community college because she had now lost that capability. And eventually they let her go. So then she was jobless, and then she couldn't have the income to keep the house, and so she was homeless. And so this is, you can't put her into a shelter that's just for individual single people. That's what the Bloomington Veterans House does. And so so that's kind of a different kind of shelter that we have here in Bloomington, and it's great that we have that. And what we want to do as the Legion is to provide them with money to help support that, because every time they get a new family in there, they got to have all new bedding. You can't just use the same sheets somebody else used. And then we also want to provide them with the ability to go shopping for groceries. You got a roof over your head, but now what are you going to do? So the $10,000 helps MACV with some of the expenses at the house. And this was really cool because We did it at home for the holidays, and you know Reg Chapman from WCCO? He saw us and he put us on the news. So that was a pretty cool social media moment. Well, traditional media too. So you guys know about the group called Bloomington Remembers Veterans. They are working on building a veterans memorial here in town. And so we are donating $25,000 to that. So far, we've given 15, and we have 10 more to go. We've been giving them $5,000 over the course of 5 different months. So that's them. You guys know this guy? So this was a meeting we had with the architect Leo A. Daly. And Leo A. Daly is the same architect that did the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. Or if you've been to the state capitol in St. Paul, have you seen that firefighters memorial? That's pretty cool. So they're going to be designing the one for Bloomington. Now, I don't have all the slideshow for that. They can provide that. But we're happy to help them. There's a meeting tomorrow night at City Hall that they have usually on the first Tuesday of the month. So I'll be going to that. But I think that's a noble thing that we're doing here in town. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting that I wrote words here. Oh, and we're working with the state legislature, you're right, to try to get funding for the memorial. We've requested $350,000 through the bonding bill, and the total price tag, I think, of the memorial is $750,000, if I'm right. So that's a pretty good chunk of change. Hopefully we can get it. And I've helped them with that part of it since I work over there. So this is me with the Closet of Hope. How many are familiar with the Closet of Hope? So it's at the Bloomington Covenant Church, and they have rooms and rooms and rooms full of clothes. You know, if you need clothing, they've got your back. And I've also told them that if they ever have a veteran that comes in there and needs help, one thing we're allowed to do is immediately help veterans. I had a veteran whose rental unit burned, and we put him up in a hotel for a while and gave him some gift cards for, I usually put him in the hotel over at Penn and American Boulevard. What is that place? Home to Suites, because it's right next to Fresh Time. And they also have a nice area on the deck there that you can grill too. So they can go over there and get their groceries and then come back. And the one thing I like about Fresh Time in the sense that I'm buying gift cards for somebody is that there's not a liquor store. That's part of it, you know, so I want to make sure that no way they can buy liquor if that's a problem. And I don't even know if you can use your Cub Foods liquor gift card in the liquor side or not, but I guess I haven't looked into it. I just go there. And so we put them up in a hotel for a little while until they can get back on their feet. So we've just done that now and then, and probably about maybe 7 or 8 times a year. And it's not always a hotel. Like we had another guy who's just was down on his luck and was trying to get another job and couldn't get another job, and he was like, we don't have any money for groceries, and I gave him a $500 gift card. So, but Angie's Room, we're happy to help with the Closet of Hope and the work that they're doing there. We told them to let us know if they have veterans and we can help. Yeah, we gave them $1,000. So we're happy to help offset poverty. Now this is a really good story. Raylan is the son of a Post 550 member. He's on the autism spectrum. And every year his family had gone out and done all this fundraising for a different autism cause each year. And I said, well, we can contribute. I didn't know that they were doing this. And so I said, well, we can contribute to that. So they were usually raising about $700, $800 from just friends. And I said, well, we can increase that. Let's do 1,000. So I was able to give it to his father, who gave it to his son to do the check presentation. And they were really happy about that. So, you know, it's just kind of like those little moments that make you enjoy doing what you do. Oh yeah, I was telling you about the Homes to Suites. This is the guy who lost his place to a rental unit fire. So the neighboring apartment caught onto his. So we gave him put him up there until he could get in, eventually to move in to where his son lives. So, good guy. And then, of course, youth sports. No doubt you're familiar with Legion Baseball. Did you know we also purchased the jerseys for Kennedy football? I already said that. Or the support we give to many other sports in town. We supported Jefferson Boys Volleyball. So they needed some help to kind of get going. And then we paid to replace the flags at the schools. And many people don't know, but the flag code, it came out of the American Legion. People don't know that the Legion actually wrote the GI Bill. You know, the VA exists because the Legion, they said they came to the Legion and said, we want to do what you're doing, because they were caring for sick World War I veterans. So they've done a lot over the course of history. And then we also joined with Post 1296, the VFW. I'm a member of both, actually. I'm just more involved with the Legion. But we hold several events, such as the Memorial Day Parade, which is coming up here along Lyndale. So if you're interested in going. But I was surprised we do this holiday party, and I never really was too involved with it. And then this year I took my kids to it, and this is just one picture, but you know, there are lots and lots of people there. I mean, just tons and tons of people. What they do is the kids can come see Santa, and then they also get a slip of paper to go pick out a toy, and the parents aren't allowed to go with the kids to pick out the toy. The kids get to pick it. And then, but it's just wildly popular. That place, I've never seen the VFW in town with that many people in it. So this is not this picture, don't go off this picture, this is just one picture, but just throughout the day, just people coming and going all day. It's a really popular thing in Bloomington I didn't know about. So that's my presentation. I don't have it be all polished or anything, I just kind of talk off the cuff. Any questions?
Full disclosure, I mentioned to you earlier, so I'm a life member of the American Legion, the VFW, and the DAV. And the American Legion, I think, is one of the finest organizations going. And if you want to contribute, you can actually go to their online site and contribute, or I'm sure the local organizations will be glad to take your money. Also, do you know much about the Veterans Village that Post 455 is working on, and could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, in Richfield, you may have been familiar with that Legion that's right on Veterans Park there. And they are basically going to tear it down and rebuild. And what they're going to build is this Veterans Village that are going to have some townhomes and some apartments. And there's going to be a restaurant as well as a banquet facility there. And instead of running all this stuff, the Legion will just collect the rent checks. So the Legion will still own the underlying land, and they'll still have offices in there for the purposes of running those different, or receiving the rent checks from those different things. But like the restaurant, have you guys heard of, what do they call that? There's a restaurant in the Twin Cities, Cricket Ale. That guy is doing the restaurant part of it. He is an Air Force veteran, and he wanted to help out with this. And there's just different people that are going to be running different parts of it, and so the Legion won't actually have to run it. They just have to collect the rent from it, and that'll be good for them. And they can rebirth and get rid of this old building that had a lot of overhead and expenses. So, and they're not just going to shut down. I kind of wish that the Legion in Bloomington, I wasn't around when it did, but in 2007, I wish instead of selling the building, they maybe could have developed the land, and maybe you'd have some businesses on the first floor and apartments above it, and one of those businesses could be like the Legion. But then, instead of just, we got to sell. But I think a lot of the posts are starting to see that there's other options than just selling when they do get into trouble.
Does the American Legion still sponsor Boys State and Boys Nation?
Absolutely, yep. We had so Boys, it's kind of a civics camp, Boys State and Boys Nation, as you learn about civics, and people who have never been to it think, it's political. It's so not political. The kids come up with their own things. Sometimes they want to do all sorts of different things, and the main thing is to teach them how democracy works. Like people don't know about what different people like the mayor does or the governor does, or how the Senate works, or and it teaches a lot of how city council works. They elect a mayor, they elect a governor, and there's even a national president when they do that. Now it's just figurative, it's no real power, but it's just practicing the things that they do at the city council, at the Senate?
Well, back in 1964, I was able to go to Boys State, and there's 2 from each high school around the state selected. So, you know, we were put up on the St. Paul campus, we went to the legislature, and we did have an election there for governor and other offices. So we did learn in a week a lot about state government, and then 2 of us went to the national, where we learned about and went to the Senate and met the senators and so on. That was really an experience, and it was all paid for by the American Legion. Bill Clinton went to Boys Nation the year before that.
In 63, that's the famous photo. You may have seen the picture of Bill Clinton with JFK. That was at American Legion Boys Nation where it happened. We sent 3 boys from Bloomington last year and then 6 from around, and we sent 10 girls last year. And some of them are from our schools and some were from neighboring schools. And, you know, we try to help out sometimes with neighboring schools if they're not, if some kids are unfunded, Bloomington we want them to go, so.
I remember we had a Boys County back home too, but see the baseball picture, my dad was the kind of athletic liaison for the Post down in Blue Earth, and I was a bat boy for the Legion team before I through 8th grade, before I made the team after my freshman year. But we also sponsored Upper Midwest Golden Gloves boxing team. Do they still sponsor boxing teams at some of the posts?
I know we don't in Bloomington, and I know this guy in St. Paul who's a veteran who was a boxer, but I don't know, he was a boxer in the military, but I don't know, I haven't heard of any boxers, no, I haven't heard of anything like that.
I got flattened by an Upper Midwest champion. I
Have you guys seen the Minnesota Legionnaire? I mean, if you get that, there's some cartoons that get drawn in there, and that's the guy who was the boxer, so. Go ahead.
Does the Legion still support the school patrol program?
Yes, we run a camp up north called Legionville, and so like safety patrol kids can go up there and learn about safety patrol. They also learn about other safety such as swimming, canoeing, first aid, CPR, you know, various different just outdoor safety. My son is going to be going the last week that they're having session, so I think it's the first week of August he'll be up there.
What's your annual budget? How does one, do you have a process for people who want to apply for the grant?
Yes, so like the Legion in town kind of has different bank accounts. So we have our membership account, which is where our dues is. There's our kind of investments over the course of the year, money from selling the post that they invest, and they also make some money off the ATM machine at the VFW and various little sales of this shirt or that trinket or whatever. But the gambling account is a whole separate bank account, even though it's at the same bank. And so let's see, last year we gave away, this was the last fiscal year, so it's ending June 30th, we gave away $244,771. Now you think, so this is, gambling is crazy with the numbers. You know that, so we do the gambling at the sports page, and there's that little counter there that you slide the money across and then you get your pull tabs. $6.1 million crossed that counter last year. Now, we have to pay out prizes though, right? So 5.4 million went back across the counter for them. And then the net receipts is $725,324. And we had allowable expenses. You have to pay the people that work there apparently, you know. And we also have other expenses that are involved. You buy the games and all that stuff. $294,754. So, you know, I think we do a good job of trying to do everything right and above board and transparent. And then we have, you know, we're doing our best to give money to good causes in the community. Every year we give a report to the city that explains, says who all we gave it to, all the charitable contributions, and then how much was in town or out of town. And usually the in-town stuff can include things that are kind of like I said with that Mac V. They may be based in St. Paul, but they do have a shelter in town, so that counts as in town. So so that came to 78% local. And the rest, even some of the stuff we donate outside of town, like I said with those Boy Staters, they're from, we can count the next town over, but some of them were even as far away were White Zeta, and we just decided to help them anyway, you know. So, but generally, some of the things that are outside of town are like Believe It, you know, and they're just trying to help raise dogs for veterans who want a comfort animal and things like that. So it's pretty good things. We helped a guy up in North Minneapolis with a poverty issue. So, you know, sometimes it's a little bit out of town, but we try our best to still do the area for the most part. So does that answer your question?
I didn't do the math quickly here. So is all the funding that you get from gambling, is that all donated? Does some of that go to your operating funds? So my question is,
We
can't. And for operations, how's the breakdown from gambling to everything?
All the funds that the Post has doesn't come from gambling. And gambling, we have to, the law says we have to give it away. So we give it all away, except of course we have, like anybody's bank account, you try to keep enough that you can still run your operation, you know. So, and some of the organizations in gambling like to save up the money until the end of the fiscal year and then they give it away. But we don't. We give ours throughout the year, and we have a 5-star rating, which is the highest rating you can have. If you were to save up to the end of the year, I think usually they get a 4 or 3-star rating. But I mean, there's just certain things that we try to do everything exactly as they tell us to. So
just a follow-up on that one, because I don't know the Legion or the VFW or any of those things. Are most of the people that buy the tickets or engage in the gambling then military?
no, they're just customers at the sports page.
I have no idea what that is.
One location, and there's one location in town that actually does better than us, and that's Willie McCoy's. They have even more. I think Willie McCoy's, let's see, Willie McCoy's gross receipts, there are the hockey, 6.5 million. And then, 5.5 million in prizes paid. Oh, and I didn't answer someone's question. They wanted to know how to request funds. What we do is we ask people to do a request letter. So it's probably much like the Rotary does with its foundation. It's, if you write a letter, you can email it or mail it in the postal mail, and then we have a box that we put all the request letters in, and then there's a committee that will review them. And our committee is just anybody who wants to go. So, it's kind of like a second membership meeting, but it prevents us from having a long membership meeting. So.
The American Legion used to be the leader, I think, in the civilian marksmanship program. Does your post do anything with that? Correct?
Yeah, there is a gun safety training group in Bloomington that stores their weapons at our post, but don't tell anybody. But they do gun safety at that training, that firing range down by Elko. But they do the classes at the VFW.
That Post 435 owns, right?
Yeah, Post 435 in Richfield owns the facility. Yep. And then there's a gun safety group that does the training at the VFW here in town, and the Legion stores the rifles.
Because PTSD, suicide is extremely high, mental health issues, do you guys have any initiatives for supporting vets?
We have a campaign called Be the One. It's our #1 priority is veteran suicide. We have another thing called buddy checks where we go and we check on fellow veterans and how are you doing? Is everything okay? Be the One is trying to encourage people to act, take action. We also donate. I know you can't solve everything with money. That's why I mentioned those things first, but we also donate to a lot of different causes that are trying to help veterans. There's the Minnesota Veteran Assistance Fund, for instance. So like, maybe you're in a town with a post that doesn't have the funds like we do to help veterans. This is a place that they can go to get some funds to help with veterans that are in some difficult situations. But, the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, he says, this is, you guys may have an idea of what veteran suicide is. He says the typical portrait of a veteran who's in danger of, I shouldn't say committed suicide, I know, it's died by suicide, but he says they often are from northern Minnesota, they've got they're older, they've got a terminal illness, and they go to St. Cloud VA, a lot of them, and there's nothing you can do, and instead of impinging on their families, they take their lives. So a lot of times you think, well, how come these younger veterans are committing suicide? It's not all younger veterans. There's a lot of older veterans that are struggling from this, and we have to make sure that we approach them and talk to them and be open with them. So the Legion is very dedicated toward trying to stop veteran suicide. I don't have all the answers, though, but I try my best. So, any other questions?
Quick questions? Tim will be here for a few more minutes.
Thanks.